Welcome to the Non-Public Registration and Public School Verification Process webinar. Today we're going to be taking you through the steps a non-public school needs to complete in order to register for equitable services and the steps a public school needs to complete in order to complete the verification process. I am Teresa Vilmer, and with me today is Julia Cowell. Julia is the Director of Federal Programs at the Department of Education, and I'm the Assistant Director and also the Equitable Services Ombudsman. Lisa Burks, who is the front line of our office and the real expert when it comes to the entire online registration process, is also with us today. The registration was due to open on October 1st. However, due to technical difficulties, the opening is delayed. When the technical issues have been fixed, we will send a listserv message to let you know the application is open. So if you are not subscribed to the FedPro listserv, now is the time. To do so, please go to dese.mo.gov. In the search engine bar in the upper right-hand corner, type Federal Programs, which will bring you to the Federal Programs webpage. Look under Quick Links in the center of the page and you will find Federal Programs listserv. Click that and then click subscribe to take you to the page to enter your information. It's that easy. So you can also view previous listserv messages on that Federal Programs listserv page. While we are working to fix the issues in order to make your registration process as streamlined as possible, you should begin collecting the enrollment and economic deprivation counts as they were as of October 1st. This will help speed up the data entry process once the registration is available to you. In the meantime, please feel free to contact our office at 573-751-3468 with any questions you may have regarding the non-public registration. Before we get started, I wanted to let you know that this webinar is being recorded and will be available the next week on DESE's webpage. We will also have the captioning available with the webinar at that time. If you have any questions, the chat box will be available today at the end of our webinar for you to post your questions directly to us. So you may want to jot down any questions you have throughout the webinar, all the while listening in case your question is answered by us during the webinar. If not, then please pose the question when the chat box opens at the end. We will attempt to answer as many questions as possible today, but if you have questions after the webinar is completed, please contact our office. Contact information by supervisor and central office staff will be available at the end of the webinar. If you are in a local education agency, or what we call an LEA, I would encourage you to reach out to any and all of the non-public schools you know of. Non-public schools located inside your school district boundaries and outside of your school district boundaries, and remind them about the non-public school registration. Remind them to register. Send them the link to this webinar once it is posted next week. Let them know you are there for any assistance they need with the registration. Let them know how to contact our office with specific questions they may have. This registration is extremely important for our non-public schools and our public schools, as well as all of the children we serve throughout the day. The non-public school registration and public school verification process is handled through a web-based system. However, if you do not have access to the internet, please contact our office. Again, that contact information will follow at the end of this webinar. This web-based system is located in DESE's web applications. This screen is showing the web address you need to get to the login screen to start that process. This is what the DESE secured web application login screen looks like. Just one second, I want to make sure that we're on the right page. Okay. I don't see the login screen page. Sorry for that. Um, Unfortunately, we'll keep going. Um, on that page, it's the login screen. There's the possibility where you can click View Public Applications. That's where you can go to the non-public registration information that's available to the general public without having to have a username and password. Keep in mind, not all information may be viewable, and some information, for example, numbers less than 10 will be suppressed with and shown only with an asterisk. In order to get in, you will need a web application user and ID password. If you do not have a username and password, you can click the register button to obtain one. You can also use the screen to request a reset if you've forgotten your username and password. There are also different levels of access that must be established for each user. There, there's view only, data entry, and authorized representative. The designated user manager for the district or non-public school can make additions or changes for staff members to permit them proper authority levels. Or the web systems user ID request form, that's going to be located on the left-hand side of the web application login screen. And that can be submitted to DESE to gain the appropriate access. There is a specific request form for public schools and a specific request form for non-public schools. And I was just informed the closed captioning is available now. If you need to open up a separate window to do that, that will be available for you if you would like that through this webinar. The view only, which is an option of access, allows an individual to view the data only. Data entry allows you to enter the data and save it, but you can't submit. And then the authorized representative allows you to view, save the data, and submit and or approve. Okay, this is what the user application menu. After logging in, the programs listed under DESE Web Applications will only show the applications in which your username and password have authority to view. Non-public schools will start that annual registration process with the link labeled Non-Public Registration Form. Public schools will start their verification process with the link labeled Non-Public Registration, Public School Verification. However, the public school verification will not start until December 1st. So let's talk about the timelines and important dates to remember. Once the registration is open, we will hope that will be sometime next week. Non-public schools will have through November 30th of 2019 to enter and submit enrollment and economic deprivation counts for all public schools from which the students reside, as well as identify the method they are using to determine economic deprivation. Non-public schools will not be able to register after November 30th deadline. Non-public schools that have not completed and submitted the registration form before November 30th, 2019 will not be eligible to receive services in the 2020-2021 school year. I want to repeat that again just so everyone gets those dates. Non-public schools that have not completed and submitted the registration form on or before November 30th, 2019 will not be eligible to receive services for the 2020-2021 school year. So LEAs, it is very important to encourage any non-public schools you do know about to register. Remind them by calling them, email them, whatever it takes, because the LEA should play a very active and leading role in getting the non-public schools registered. Now, from December 1st, 2019 through February 29th, 2020, the non-public registration public school verification will open for public school districts. To start this public school process, the non-public registration system will generate an email to the public school alerting them that they have had one or more non-public schools indicate they have students who reside in the LEA's boundaries which are attending their non-public school. Public school districts are required to verify the enrollment counts, verify the economic deprivation counts, and review the method the non-public school chose for determining the economic deprivation. After the verification and review, the public school will then accept or decline the enrollment counts. They will accept or decline the economic deprivation counts and accept or decline the method for determining economic deprivation for each non-public school serving children from their district. We strongly encourage advising public schools to begin this verification process as soon as the window for verification opens, which is December 1st. So please mark that date on your calendar. For any counts or methods declined, the system will generate an email to the non-public school alerting them that the public school they reported has declined one or more values and requires their attention. At this time, the non-public school must make the necessary changes and resubmit, which then goes back to the public school for verification again and hopefully acceptance. This back and forth process will continue until all counts and methods have been accepted. Please do not wait until the end of February for this initial verification. It's really just too late. In the event a public school district does not complete the verification process before February 29th of 2020, DESE will accept all counts and methods as submitted by that non-public school, and those counts and methods will be used to provide services for the 2020-2021 school year. If the system closes, which for this year is on February 29th, 2020, and there are any declined values, that non-public school will not be eligible to receive services for the 2020-2021 school year. Title I regulations state that funds for services to non-public school children are determined by the number of economically deprived non-public school children who reside in Title I participating public schools. Funds to be spent in other federal programs are determined by the enrollment counts of non-public school children. It is imperative that non-public and public school personnel work together to assure that non-public enrollment and economic deprivation counts are accurate. This data is essential in the allocation process. If you need assistance in determining geographic boundaries, non-public schools should contact the public school. When registering, the non-public will be required to enter a variety of information. It's very important that what is submitted is accurate. The information from the non-public school registration forms are used to prepare a list of economically deprived schools. The teachers in these schools may be eligible for full or partial cancellation of loans they obtained under the Federal Perkins Loans Program and the National Direct Student Loans Programs. To be eligible for Perkins loan cancellation, teachers must be teaching full-time at a low-income school. DESE reports all schools, both public and non-public, that have 30% or more economic deprivation. The information from the non-public school registration forms are used to enable non-public school participation in one or more federal programs under the ESSA program. These federal programs include Title I-A, Title I-C, Title II-A, Title III-A, and Title IV-A. Non-public enrollment and economic deprivation data is used as part of the formula to determine allocations for federally funded programs. Once the allocations have been computed and distributed to the LEAs, corrections may not be made. The information is used to generate a non-public total enrollment count, special education and non-special education students, which is used for the Public Schools Special Education Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA, Part B allocation calculation for both the 3 to 21-year-old and 3 to 5-year-old students. IDEA requires public school districts to set aside a proportionate share amount of IDEA funds for special education services and supports to parentally placed non-public school students with disabilities. If the non-public school does not provide an accurate total enrollment count, this could negatively impact the amount of IDEA funds the public school has available to provide special education services and supports to parentally placed non-public school students with disabilities. The information is used to generate nomination applications for the Missouri Fine Arts Academy and the Missouri Scholars Academy. If a non-public school wishes to become an A+ school, the non-public school registration is where the non-public school would start that process. Or if they're already an A+ school, this registration process is where you can change or update that contact person or contact information. And the information is used for general statistical purposes related to projecting population shifts, changes in school age population, and so on. DESE receives numerous requests from congressmen, federal agencies, private agencies, and the general public regarding the enrollment and deprivation in non-public schools. We do have reports available on our website that allow these entities to query this information. Now to move on to the non-public registration. Again, the window for registration is normally from October 1st through November 30th. However, due to technical issues with the system, we anticipate that registration opening next week. And in case anyone joined us late, a listserv will be sent once that registration is open. So if you have not subscribed to our FedPro listserv, now is the time to do so. November 30th, registration will close for non-public schools. This is a screenshot of the non-public registration homepage. Any notifications or announcements from our office can be found here. From here, non-public schools will start that registration process by clicking Form Selection in the middle of the page, or you can access it on the left-hand side. When clicking Form Selection, you will get to this Form Selection page. The year will automatically default to the 2019-2020 school year. However, you can use the down arrow of the year line to review prior year registration data that will go back as far as 2003-2004. So, to start that registration process, you would click Create Initial, which takes you to the school information page. As you can see from the text on the left-hand side in the blue, the non-public registration process consists of 3 pages, which are the school information page, the enrollment summary page, and the student information page. Then you have Submit Registration page. The school information page is a long page, so for webinar purposes today, we're going to use several screenshots to show you what the entire page looks like and the information it asks for. The header is something to pay close attention to also as you work through the registration process. The system will let you know where you are in the process, and we'll talk more about that later and what the different statuses mean. The school contact, first name, last name, and position are all required fields and therefore must be entered. If you completed the registration information last year, this information will be pre-populated with the data from the prior year. Also, for all revisions made during the registration period, the contact information will carry forward. You will also notice the red text in the middle of the screen. It is notifying the user that all fields with the red asterisk beside them are required, and leaving fields blank will prevent the registration form from being submitted. This logic holds true for every screen in the entire registration process. Contact information is collected here, and here we're asking for the street address, the city, state, zip, phone number, and email address. This section will be pre-populated with data from the prior year's non-public registration. However, if need be, these fields can be edited if there are changes. All of these fields are required except the fax number is optional. Also, an email address is required for online registration, as this is the main mode of communication between DESE and the non-public schools. Also, automatic electronic notifications will be occurring throughout the non-public registration and public school verification process between the public school and non-public schools, so having correct email addresses is vital. For example, it is through this email address that you will receive notification from the public school if any data you reported is accepted or declined. School type and grade span are also required fields. This section will be pre-populated from data from the prior year's non-public registration. However, again, if you need to, these fields can be edited if there are changes. You will choose the appropriate type and grade span for the non-public school by clicking the down arrows in each field. If your type of non-public school is not listed, choose Other, and then the system will give you the option to add it. Resident information is also shown here, and this will show the public school district information in which your non-public school resides. So that's the school information page in a nutshell. School contact, contact information, school type, and resident information. Once you've entered all the information, you will want to click the Save button. Save allows you to stay on the page and will alert you if you have any errors. And that's page 1 of the non-public registration. Throughout the system, if you attempt to save a screen in which information is required, the system will alert you with a message like the one shown here. Data on the entire page will not save until all required fields are completed. In this case, this is showing an example where the first and last name was not completed. Once all information is completed on the page and you click Save, the message like the one shown here will appear saying School Information Saved. Only then are you safe to know all your information you have entered on that page has saved and that you can move on. It's a good practice to save often while working in the system in case it times you out or something happens and you get distracted. Now that the school information page is complete and saved, we can proceed to the next page. And to do so, you would scroll down to the bottom of the page and click Save and Continue. Also, I want you to keep in mind that clicking the Continue button does not save your information unless you had already clicked the Save button. Enrollment summary is the second page in the non-public registration process. Just some things to note about this page. There is a hot link for instructions, so be sure to click that for more information at the top of the screen. There are links to definitions, which you'll also find helpful as you start your work on this page. The school district field will default to the resident public school district. So for this non-public that we're using in this example is St. Andrew's School, and the resident public school district is Tipton R6 with the county district code of 068073. First, you will want to start with answering the question whether or not your non-public school wishes to participate in federal programs. As the non-public school, if you do not want to participate in any of the federal programs, you will select No from the drop-down arrow, click Save, and then Continue. A No would indicate that the non-public does not intend to participate in one or more of the federal programs and/or be identified as a designated A+ school. In this definition, federal programs includes Title 1A, Title 1C, Title 2A, Title 3A, Title 4, special education, and loan forgiveness. So by picking no to federal programs, the non-public would be choosing not to participate in all of these programs. We recommend that the non-public school choose yes to federal programs participation here because the non-public school can always choose not to participate during that spring consultation time with the LEAs. However, if a non-public chooses no to federal programs participation here during the fall non-public registration, they can't go back later and change their mind to participate. Remember, we use prior year data, so data being entered in the non-public registration right now will be used for the 2020-2021 school year. By selecting no to federal programs, the Title I participation field automatically defaults to no. Click Save, which keeps you on the current page to check for edits or errors, and then click Continue, which brings you to the Submit Registration page. If the non-public wishes to participate in federal programs, select Yes from the drop-down arrow. This would mean that the non-public intends to participate in one or more of the federal programs and/or be identified as a designated A+ school. Again, the federal programs definition here is Titles 1A, Titles 1C, Title 2A, Title 3A, Title 4A, Special Education, and Loan Forgiveness. Also, the resident public school district information will appear here, which in this screenshot, the resident public school for St. Andrew is Tipton R6. Next, the non-public school must specify if they wish to participate in Title I. If the non-public selects no, the non-public will enter the entire enrollment count for the non-public school. And the next step then would be to click Save and proceed to the Submit Registration page. This is because all of the other titles besides Title 1A is based on where the non-public school is located and is for professional development and well-rounded educational opportunities. If the non-public selects yes to participating in Title I, they will then select the method that will be used to determine economic deprivation. Changing the economic deprivation method while adding multiple attendance center records under the same public school district will result in only the latest method value being applied to that LEA. So be sure to check that all data is accurate. From the Attendance Centers drop-down box, select the first attendance center in which the students attending the non-public school reside and enter the enrollment and economic deprivation counts for the first attendance center. Follow the same process to add each additional building for the resident school district. The non-public school may choose Title I participation in each LEA in which their students reside. In order to generate funding for services, the non-public school must have an economically deprived students who reside in a participating public school attendance center. Once you click Save, a summary will show up at the bottom of the screen. And as you add additional attendance centers and LEAs, you will see the summary list grow and grow. After enrollment and economic deprivation counts for all attendance centers in the resident school district have been added and saved, select the next school district in which a non-public student resides, and then select the economic deprivation method for that school. A different economic deprivation method may be selected for each school district in which the non-public student resides. Then add each attendance center with enrollment and economic deprivation counts until the enrollment information page is complete. Also note, all enrollment and economic deprivation counts are as of October 1st of the current non-public registration year. So enrollment numbers and economic deprivation numbers reported here are as of October 1st, 2019. Best practice for the non-public schools would be to print out the list of students being reported here, as the LEA will need this during their verification process. The LEA verification process doesn't open until December 1st, and the situation could occur where a student or students were at the non-public school on October 1st and reported in the enrollment counts, but come December 1st are no longer at the non-public school when that LEA goes to verify. The LEA must still verify the counts as they were submitted because those were the students enrolled at the non-public on October 1st. Be sure to click the Save button after each entry to save the entered data. Also, be careful when adding LEAs because there are a couple school districts in Missouri that have the same name. Make sure you have the appropriate school for your region. For example, there's a Miami R1 in Bates County, and there's a Miami R1 in Saline County. Exact name, but they have a different county district code. So just be careful and make sure you check that closely. This screenshot shows you what the definitions look like. It is describing all the methods that you can choose from when picking the method to determine economic deprivation. You can view these by clicking the word definitions to the right of the method choice. The LEA, after consultation with the non-public school, shall have the final authority to decide which method is used. If the non-public school participates in the school lunch program, they must use their free and reduced lunch count, which is method 1. When choosing method 3, the system will automatically calculate the total number of economically deprived students from each building based on the public school district's percentage of economically deprived students. Also, the non-public can choose a different economic deprivation method for each public school in which they have students attending. For Title I purposes, we use the enrollment and economic deprivation data based on the LEA residents. Only students that live in eligible and participating LEA attendance centers may receive Title I services as long as funds were generated by economic deprivation. Make sure the economic deprivation number has been entered correctly. Title I funding is based upon economic deprivation. All open fields do require information even if it is a 0, so be sure to complete each box and field or you'll get a reminder like this saying that data will not save until all required fields are completed. Under that message, it will tell you specifically what needs to be fixed, and in this case, this example is saying a value must be entered for each grade level. If everything looks good and all the data is entered, the red edit box will go away and the LEA that was just added will appear in the lower part of that enrollment summary page. This screenshot is showing you just the bottom portion of the enrollment summary page, and it shows a non-public school who has students attending more than one LEA. This is a summary of the data entered on the top part of the enrollment summary page. In this case, the non-public school, which is St. Andrew, reported having students who reside in the Tipton R6 school district boundaries and students who reside in the Morgan County R2 school district boundaries. You will notice the comment box here, circled in blue, which allows the non-public, LEAs, and DESE to communicate back and forth during this registration and verification process. Please, please, please use these boxes. It is a really good way to share information, and it's viewable by all groups so everyone can be informed as what is occurring during the registration and verification process. In order to save the comment, you'll need to click the blue link below the comment boxes, denoted with the green arrow on the right side of your screen that says Save Comment. If you're logged in as a non-public school, it will say Save Non-Public Comment. If you are logged in as an LEA, it will say Save LEA Comment. Right now on this screenshot, I was logged in under my DESE username and password, so it is showing Save DESE Comment, but yours will either show Save Non-Public or Save LEA Comment based on who is logged in. Please note the blue Save button at the top of the screen that I've denoted here with the red X, it will not save your comments. Only the blue link that says Save Comments will work to save any comments that you've entered in that section. If you need to delete an LEA altogether, you can do that by clicking the Delete Hot link. It will delete the LEA and all the information that was entered for it. The Delete Hot link will display by each LEA and is denoted here with the green arrow on the left side of the screen. I do want to point out the print button. The print button here will only print off the summary page that's shown here. Remember, the summary is at the bottom of the enrollment summary. There is a print button on the Submit Registration page, and that will print off all of the pages of the registration, and I'll point that out to you when we get to that screenshot. Once you've added all the LEAs and attendance centers for the students that are attending your non-public, click the summary part of the page. You'll want to check the summary part of the page to make sure it accurately reflects the student population. If it does not accurately reflect your student population, you'll want to go back to the top of the screen. Here's where you'll need to select the appropriate school district and attendance centers based on the data that you need to change. If, after reviewing the summary, all the information you entered is correct, you can click the Continue button. And that completes the enrollment summary page. And so if we click Continue, it takes you to the student information page. Really, that's the third and final page of the registration. You can also navigate through all the registration pages by using the navigation on the left-hand side. The first three fields on this student information page are not new and have been collected in previous years. This is where you will report the number of graduates who received a high school diploma in 2019. If your non-public only serves K through 8, you would not have any students who received a high school diploma, and therefore you would enter a 0. The next section is the number of English learner students in preschool through grade 12. who were enrolled on the last Wednesday in February whose English language proficiency was below that of grade and age level peers. Next is the immigrant section, and it is asking for the number of eligible immigrant youths who have not been attending one or more schools in any one or more state for more than 3 full academic years. The data on English learners and immigrant youths will be used to distribute the Title III allocation to LEAs. The LEAs will then be able to provide services for non-public students and teachers. The last section is new to the student information page, and that is the enrollment counts for preschool. Up until last year, we collected pre-K numbers on the enrollment summary page, which is that page we just reviewed. However, since pre-K numbers are not used in allocations for Title I, it really simplifies the data collection to move the pre-K numbers to the student information page. And here it's asking for the number of students attending pre-K for the current year. This is the bottom of that student information page, and it will only show up if your non-public school serves grades 9 through 12. Here, the non-public will check yes or no to the question whether or not they are an A+ school or if they wish to register to become an A+ school. If yes, all contact information for the A+ contact will need to be completed. Also, the agreement to the school commitment and student requirement assurances is required by clicking the box to the left, which is circled in blue on the screenshot. Prior year information, if completed, will be pre-populated for you when you get to this page. If that's the case, please check to make sure all populated information is correct. Once complete, click Save to stay on this page and make sure you do not have any edits. Once you get to the green at the top saying the student information is saved, you can click Save and Continue to move on, and that completes the student information page. Which brings us to the form submittal page, and this is the last page of the non-public registration process for non-public schools. Here you would click the box saying that as the authorized representative, you certify your school is in compliance with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and that the information you submitted is true and correct to the best of your knowledge. Once you click that box to submit, the submit button will be activated, which will look like this, and then now all that's left to do is to click the submit button. That submit button is only displayed for the person who is logged in with user representative authority. This submittal screen serves as a signature page in which the non-public authorized representative confirms all information reported is correct. If you try to submit but the fields aren't completed somewhere throughout that application, the system will not let you submit. It will, however, alert you here and let you know the fields that were not completed. Once you go back and fix those fields, you can come back to the submittal page and click the submit button. You will know that you've successfully submitted by the green header stating registration submitted successfully. You can click the print button, which will print off the entire non-public registration report, including all those pages that are listed on the left, which is the school information, the enrollment summary, and the student information page. I think at this time, Julie's going to go through the next step, which is in the registration process, which is going to be the public school verification.
All right. As Teresa mentioned at the beginning the non-public registration public school verification will open December 1st and close this year on February 29th. The next step in the non-public registration process is once the non-public registration window closes, which will be November 30th, all LEAs who had children reported by a non-public will receive an electronic notification telling them this and asking them to log on to the non-public registration public school verification system to review and verify all data submitted by the non-public school. So let's look at what that process will look like. Public schools will start by logging into DESE's web applications and then choosing Non-Public Registration Public School Verification. The district's user manager or a web system user ID request form can be completed in order to give the appropriate person for the district the proper user authority for non-public registration public school verification. This is the home page for the non-public registration process for the public school. Any announcements or information DESE wishes to communicate with the LEAs regarding the non-public registration process will be posted here for the LEAs to review. To start the verification process, the LEA will have one page and one page only. Depending on the number of non-public schools who reported having students, the page may be longer for some LEAs than others, but there is only one page in the public school verification process. This page can be found by clicking the link on the left called Public School Verification. Using the example school we looked at for non-public registration, we are now going to look at Tipton and Morgan County R2 here. Remember, St. Andrew reported having students who resided in Tipton School District boundaries and Morgan County R2 School District boundaries. Tipton R6 and Morgan County R2 would receive an email on December 1st alerting them that a non-public school has reported having an enrollment of students who reside in the LEA's boundaries. The email tells the LEA they must log into the non-public registration public school verification system to verify all data and counts submitted. So the LEA, and here for our example, Tipton R6 and Morgan County R2, would log into the non-public registration public school verification, and this slide shows you what they would see. Here, Tipton R6 will review all data and then, in turn, communicate with St. Andrew to verify. Enrollment 98 were reported, so they must make sure these 98 students actually reside in the Tipton R6 school district boundaries. To do this, the LEA will need to get the addresses for all 98 students. Economic deprivation count, 11 were reported. So the LEA must make sure these 11 students are actually economically deprived. To do this, the LEA will need to see family makeup and income. The non-public low-income verification can be a spreadsheet that the non-public school has created that does not include the family by name. Family A can be used instead of the John Smith family. Economic deprivation method. St. Andrew picked method 1. After verifying, the LEA will check the appropriate radio button for each area. Any areas in which the LEA declines or does not agree, a comment should be made in the comment box as to why they are disagreeing or declining the counts. We do ask that you do not include student or family names in your comments. In this example, the LEA only agrees with the economic deprivation method, meaning after review and verification, the LEA disagrees with the enrollment count and the economic deprivation count that St. Andrew provided. So after selecting the appropriate radio button to accept and or decline and adding a comment, the LEA would click Save and then submit the button, and then the Submit button. This Submit button actually submits the documentation. It's not like ePIGS where there is a submittal page, so be sure you truly are ready to submit when you click the Submit button. This action will complete the LEA's verification process for the time being until the non-public school receives notification that the LEA disagrees and allows them time to review, then change data and resubmit, or review data, make no changes, and resubmit. When declining any values, an LEA should use the comment box to communicate to the non-public school why they are declining each value. Remember, if a non-public picked method 3, the system will automatically calculate the total number of economically deprived students from each building based on the public school district's percentage of economically deprived students. So in turn, if a public school declines method 3, the system will default and the economic deprivation count will also be declined. The submit button will be next to each non-public school instead of at the bottom of the page as it is shown here. Notice there's a print option here in case you want to print the form. It is very important that public schools do not wait until the last minute to complete the verification process. When declining, the LEA and non-public will need to leave themselves enough time to work together on the verification process so all data can ultimately, in the end, be accepted. We've had situations where an LEA declined the economic deprivation method, specifically method 3, late during the verification period, where it was difficult, if not impossible, for the non-public to complete a survey and resubmit before the deadline. The LEA will know it was successful in submitting by getting the green header bar at the top of the screen that says, "Successfully submitted your selections." The LEA submits their response, and the non-public will receive electronic notification alerting them that either A, all their data for the LEA they reported students in has been accepted, or B, some of their data for an LEA they reported students in has been declined. Non-publics will receive this email notification from each LEA they reported as having their students. If all LEAs accepted all the non-public school data, the non-public registration process is complete, and the non-public would be able to go into the system and see the status to reflect this, and the status is completed verification. That status can be seen on the form selection screen on the non-public school. If one or more LEAs declines one or more pieces of data, the non-public school and the public school must work together back and forth in order to get to a spot where all data can be verified and accepted. The status of the non-public registration form would be in process during this time. This is a good time to point out the activity log. If we click View, the activity log shows us where the entire process is tracked. You also have the availability to print this page as well. If through the verification, the non-public needs to update any data because the public school declines values, the non-public goes back into the system to update their data, and the screen will look like this. The non-public will need to click the button Update Declined Values to update the values declined by the public school. Once all declined values are updated, the non-public will click Return to LEA. The public school district receives electronic notice that the non-public registration is ready for verification. At that time, the public school would log back into the system, verify any prior declined values. Once acceptable, the LEA clicks the Accept Radio buttons and saves and submits. It is very important that the non-public and public school work together back and forth through the verification window time until all counts and methods are accepted. Once that is completed, it will show completed verification for the LEA that has accepted all data. Once all data is accepted, the registration process is complete for both non-public and public schools. I mentioned the status of the registration, so let's look at the different possible status levels and their definitions. Created status. The form is created with possible saved data but has not been submitted yet. The form is still open for updating for users with the proper access during the registration and open enrollment period. Submitted status. The form has been submitted by the non-public user. It can no longer be updated within the registration enrollment period. Any changes to the information submitted will have to be handled by creating a new form revision. Once the registration enrollment period is closed, the public school district can review and verify the information submitted by the non-public school. In-process status. A registration form has been submitted. Enrollment summary values declined by one or more public school district referenced in the registration form. In this state, the declined registration form values can be updated by the non-public school and returned to the public school district for further review. Completed verification. A registration form has had all submitted enrollment summary values accepted by all the public school districts referenced in the submitted registration form during the open public school verification period. The registration process is completed at this point. A completed verification period is closed with either all accepted or some declined values. So what happens if a public school does not go in and verify data during the open window period? In the event a public school district does not complete the verification process before February 29, 2020, DESE will accept all counts and methods submitted by the non-public school, and those counts and methods will be used to provide services for the 2020-2021 school year. What happens if the public school declines some of the values and the non-public doesn't update during the open window period? If the system closes and there are any declined values, the non-public school will not be eligible to receive equitable services for the 2020-2021 school year. DESE will go into the system and mark it as completed verification with declined values. This is why it is extremely important to start working on the verification and communication back and forth between the non-public school and public school early. Because again, if the system closes and there are any declined values, the non-public school will not be eligible to receive equitable services for the 2020-2021 school year. For additional resources, be sure to go to our federal program's non-public webpage. This is a screenshot of what the federal program's webpage looks like. To get here from DESE's main webpage, look for Office of Quality Schools, because that is what office federal programs is located in. Once here on the right-hand side in blue, you will see non-public. This will be a valuable page for you to bookmark because we have a lot of very helpful tools and guidance for you on this page. For more information, you can contact Lisa, Teresa, or myself with the contact information provided here. Also, there are federal program supervisors listed by region. Feel free to contact them also with any questions you may have. At this time, we will open up the chat box to begin taking questions. We'll pause now to allow questions to begin coming in, and we'll be back with you in just a few short minutes.
Thank you for the questions. We'll stay on a little bit more. I think we're all caught up so far with the questions that have been submitted. If anybody has any questions, please go ahead and submit those now. We'll stay on a little bit longer. Put the music on. How'd you put it on? I think I saw 56 as the most. Me? Hello? Hello? Mm-hmm. I'm scared to say type it. I meant typing, right? We can't speak, I don't think.